Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome once again to North. Is there some feedback? Welcome again to Northeast Comic-Con and Collectibles Show here. Is everybody having a great weekend so far? It's a rainy day. Awesome, awesome. Thank you all for coming out here. So welcome to this panel, Careers in the Creative Arts. We'll be talking to Alicyn Packard about voice acting and how you get into voice acting. I see some fans out here of Alicyn's already. So Alicyn, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Hey guys, thanks for coming to the panel.
So what we're going to talk a little bit about is careers in the creative arts, voice acting.
Yeah.
How does somebody go about doing voice acting? What is your story? How did you become?
So let's start at the very beginning. I was my very first role that I ever got was playing Gretel in the Hansel and Gretel production of the first grade class play, and I just always knew that I enjoyed performing and enjoyed bringing joy to people. And I did a lot of theater and musical theater growing up. That's my mom over there crying in the corner. And she always encouraged me and inspired me to express myself. And then when I got into high school, I was doing a lot of stuff with my voice, like oratorical essays. They would have, the Voice of Democracy oratorical essay. And I found that I was pretty good at communicating a story, an idea, using just my voice. And in many ways, it was almost easier. I was never a dancer or super comfortable, like physically, not athletic or anything like that. But I always felt pretty comfortable and grounded in my voice. I didn't know voice acting was a job until a friend in high school said, you should think about voice acting. And we were in the radio club, and I ended up going to a school in Boston called Emerson College. And I came in as a broadcast journalist major because I thought I wanted to be the next Katie Couric behind the scenes, like, hey, let's figure this out, tell me the story, what's the scoop? And then I realized they wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, and there's no college kid that wants to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I realized how not about telling the truth, it's about finding the scoop, finding the story, and there's slant to everything, and it just wasn't for me. But then I got into radio, and I was working on the station WERS, which is our community college station, and I loved being on the radio. I loved hosting. I liked selecting music. But at the time, the radio stations are all conglomerating into one thing, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity as a radio DJ to really make a great career. It seemed like a challenging path. And at the time, I was doing a lot of on-camera acting and kind of just kept coming back to that and wanting to kind of bring everything together in terms of producing and writing and performing. So I ended up majoring in new media, which is, I guess, internet production, multimedia production, and design. And when I came out to California, Los Angeles, Emerson has an LA program. So you can go there and graduate out there, and then they help you get an internship in entertainment. And by that point, I was just like, I'm good. If I don't go for it now when I'm young and dumb, I might not do it again. And that really was great because I had met people at college that were then interning and working as assistants at talent agencies that gave me my first opportunity, Janet Shaw, actually. And so my first job was Prince of Persia, Warrior Within. And then shortly after that, I booked World of Warcraft, the female blood elf for Burning Crusade. And those were two pretty big games, but so much has changed where people are so much more aware of who the voice actors are than they were when I first started about 15 plus years ago. So I came out there to pursue both on camera and voice acting. And voice acting just always was easier. I felt more like I was part of the crew than just the talent, which I like. When you are pursuing on camera, there's just so many people, and there's sometimes this attitude that actors are, a dime a dozen, and so nobody likes to feel like you're just a dime a dozen. But voice actors is like, oh, that's something a little bit different. It's maybe a little easier to stand out. And so I started auditioning, and I think my first year I probably booked one job, and year after year it just became more and more and more interesting roles, and a diverse arrangement of roles. Everything from commercials. I do Lazy Boy, I do Cliff Bar, Ameriprise, or some of the campaigns I have running now. Commercials is super fun, kind of the bread and butter of voice acting. But then there's voice acting for video games, animated television, e-learning. I mean, the list goes on and on. Everywhere where you hear voices, those are stuff that voice actors audition for.
And you mentioning like that, there is so much material out there for voice actors. Like you said, you do commercials, you do games, you do cartoons, the educational learning things like the apps and whatnot. Certainly I'm sure you may even surprise yourself. You do so many roles, so many parts, and then later on down the line, all of a sudden your voice shows up on something. You're like, wait a second, that's me, right?
Yeah, and sometimes we will record a 4-hour session, and then the game doesn't come out for a year, so you kind of forget, the lines, and sometimes a lot of the fans know your work better than you do because you kind of forget.
And I want to ask you about video games, because I want to talk about animation, but video games in particular.
Yeah.
Like for the voice actors who do those, that really is like a really strenuous job from what I hear, because sometimes you're falling 100 feet, sometimes you're falling 1,000 feet, right? And
yeah.
How do you differentiate that fall?
Fortunately, I've had the good fortune of working with some amazing directors like Chris Zimmerman, who directed me on Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Survive. And they save most of the hard stuff for the end of the session, because they know that if you're doing death cries or death rattles, and there's so many different, they'll be like, okay, there's exertions, like you're punching someone, like, yeah, and then getting punched, which is more an effort of like, and you need to kind of know how all that stuff sounds. So a great director will help guide you through it, and I really learned a lot by working with her. But some of the, death screams, like, I can't really show you right now because I'll blow out my vocal cords. Yeah, but you learn how so many different ways to die.
But now, like you're and even as you were doing the different hits and stuff. So as a voice actor, even though you're not on camera, you are making a lot of these movements as you go.
Yeah.
Just because your body needs to react in a certain kind of way.
Yes.
So there's a lot of physicality into that.
And there have been changes. So a lot of games, you are in a room. The director is usually behind a pane of glass. The engineer sets you up, and the microphone's here. Now, when we recorded Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that just came out, they had 2 stereo microphones attached to your head. You can go to my Instagram at Alicyn and see, I have pictures of the microphone, which is like here. Now that is awesome, because you really can physicalize. You guys are welcome to come in.
Come on in,
You can come in and leave whenever you want. Just kidding, you have to stay. So that when you have the freedom to move around, it just helps you stay in the moment, and it helps the acting better because you can physicalize, if you're holding for example, a shooter game or something, and you're holding like a rifle, you want to actually lock it and physicalize, and that is a big part of bringing not just the reality to your character, but you can hear the physicalization.
Let me ask you too now, you were saying the voice actor as opposed to on-screen actors, and it is a big community, but it's a smaller community of voice actors. And certainly it is absolutely getting bigger. When we were growing up, they were like maybe it's staple of like maybe 10 or so main voice actors, like Frank Welker's, your Dawes Butlers,
Billy West.
So and back in the day, it was probably more of a male-dominated field. I mean, the main. There's a couple of people that come to mind, but the main person who I think of is June Foray. And then I'd say maybe close second to her, maybe be like Jean Vanderpyle, who did a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff. She was Wilma on the Flintstones, Rosie on the Jetsons. Did you have, and male or female, did you have a particular voice artist that was like an inspiration to you? Like you gravitated towards their work growing up?
Well, I mentioned this a little bit on the panel yesterday. So you guys, who was at the panel yesterday? Okay, then I'm going to go with a news story. Well, the short story of that is I was really inspired by Billy West because he's from the same area.
Gotcha.
I mean, when I moved to town, Tara Strong was like a huge inspiration because of the vocal diversity of what she can do. Everybody from like Sparkle Pony to Hello Kitty and, all these different voices. So she was somebody I really looked up to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned her, and there's been a lot, and now you're one of them too. There's been so many great women who have come out, like Tara Strong, Nancy Cartwright, of course. Yeah. And they all studied with all these classic people like Billy and Dawes and all these folks. So certainly, it's becoming, I guess the playing field is becoming more level for voice artists.
Certainly, I mean, with everything that has happened globally this past year, there is way more of a trend to not just go with the voice actor that can do everything, but to look for the closest fit for that particular role. For better or for worse, there's more people in the game and more diverse voices, which is great. And they kind of want the casting to be a little bit more your natural speaking voice sometimes. I mean, obviously that's a super broad generalization, but yeah, so there's just more and more people, I think, getting into the game than ever before.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this question in regards for folks who are interested in doing voice acting. When you're putting together your demo reel,
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you recommend putting on it? I mean, obviously, you're not going to probably go on there. You're not going to do Wilma Flintstone. You're not going to do Granny. You're not going to do Twilight Sparkle or whatever.
Yeah, you don't do impressions.
What would you recommend for people wanting to do?
If somebody is looking to start a voice acting career, the thing is, as you probably know, you want to get an agent to get the best opportunity to get professional level auditions. There are certain pay-to-play sites, which are websites where you can put a demo up. Come on in.
Join us.
But the thing that you need first actually is a commercial demo, because it's very rare that a talent agent would take you on just for animation, unless you're like Billy West or something. Generally, they're going to want to hear a commercial demo first. So that would be my suggestion, is that you really listen to a bunch of commercials. Check out ispot.tv, which is a database of all the commercials, and listen to what's on the air and kind of hear the read and listen along. Like, a furniture store, which is a retail, or like an Albertsons or grocery stores, that type of read is going to be different than, say, a more conversational type of read, aspirational, kind of knowing the different reads, and then working with a producer and a coach to get that. But even before then, you really want to train so that you're not wasting your money, because renting a recording studio and all that can be quite costly. So there are, even in Boston, that's where I started taking classes, CP casting, Boston casting, and I'm sure Google could tell you more specifically. There are voice acting classes you can take and start learning microphone technique. Obviously, if I'm talking like this, it's going to be different than if I'm talking really loud like this. So knowing your microphone is important. And nowadays, you need a home studio, which is a bit of an investment.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, because, and you're talking about growing up here in Boston and Billy being inspiring to you. The voice market really traditionally has been East Coast, West Coast,
And Chicago.
And now, I mean, especially in this last year, I'm sure the floodgates have opened up worldwide because people are creating these home studios, which are relatively easy to put together because, again, we all have one of these at home, whether you're doing filming or audio, you can put it together really easy. How do you think that affects the playing field going forward, too?
Well, in many different ways. This is a trend that we've seen developing years in the making as people, more and more people are vying for jobs nationally and even internationally. So, I mean, I think you can have the opportunity to really work from anywhere. Now, that's been true for commercials. That's been true for a lot of smaller jobs. Now, what we're seeing, though, is I have a friend, they're both voice actors, husband and wife, and they just moved to Atlanta, and they are being bi-coastal and globally, and they're able to work in both markets, which is so awesome if you can work in two different markets. So I think we're going to see more of that. Now, the question is, will we go back into a recording studio once the pandemic is sort of, there's some more knowledge of that? I hope so. The best and most fun is when you're in the studio, we're doing an ensemble record for a television show. So I hope it does go back. But I mean, there are opportunities if you know where to look and you have the representation to be able to get you the auditions that you need.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned like the ensemble pieces too.
Yeah.
Because you watch a lot of behind the scenes things on like YouTube or on DVD features, and like you see just like that sole person in the recording booth, and then you see like this chemistry on the screen. And certainly when you have that ensemble piece,
yeah,
like you guys are all playing off of each other, and you guys may play around and do something that they take it and run with, right?
Absolutely. When I was working on Space Racers with Yuri Lowenthal, Melissa Hutchinson, Johnny Young Bosch, we would all record ensemble. Joey Dioria. These are some great voice actors that I've had the good fortune to work with. And we would, however, if Yuri's like, Zaza Zoom, and I'll be like, more like Zaza Splash, we just playing off each other and like, improvising a little bit if the writers are open to it, if the producers are open to it. And you're gonna get more funny, the setup is, the punchline is gonna match the setup. And it's just so much more fun. I think that the issue comes about is just scheduling. If people are busy and trying to get everybody in the room together can be an issue, but it's the most fun way to work.
And you mentioned busy. I mean, the one thing for voice artists are too is like you guys are continuously working. You may have a bunch, like if you're an on-camera actor, you're working on this film, you're working on this one TV show at a time.
Mm-hmm.
As a voice actor, you are working on commercials, and you may be on like 3 or 4 different shows. All
hopefully,
but you might be doing that all within in the same like week.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the most exciting thing about voice acting is you have so much diversity. Now, not everybody plays in every playing field. There are some actors that work mostly in animation and maybe do a commercial here and there. There are some actors that do audiobooks. That's a very big market. So people can, your career kind of builds at where your talents are. But sorry, did I miss your question? What?
No, we're just saying, about the improv. And you mentioned your background in radio. Do you find that helped you too?
Well, I will say that people do not like to hear that you have a background in radio if you do voiceover, because radio announcers and the announcer sound in general, like on KNX, da 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 da, like it's a certain radio. I'm talking about a radio sound. Like they don't want that. It's not cool right now. So even promos, like I do promos for the Ovation Network, like coming up next on Ovation, or Journey, like that sort of thing. The announcer read is being overtaken for the more conversational, like, hey, when you're at the store, da 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 da, that type of very conversational, off the cuff commercial read where it's like you're just talking to a friend, and so that is really challenging as well, because then you have to, you're not just listening to the sound of your voice. And with radio, a lot of time people are wearing headphones, aka cans, your cans. And if you're in the can, what are you doing? You're listening to yourself. if you're acting, you're not listening to yourself. When you're in a conversation, you're not hearing yourself, you're thinking and speaking, but you're not listening. So what happens is when you are listening to yourself act, it changes the read and it sounds like it will put you into a more announcer place. So a lot of coaches won't even have headphones in the room because they don't want you to be listening to yourself while you're acting.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. The person that comes to mind is Gary Owens.
I met him.
Did you?
Yeah.
Because he had that announcer voice, but he was always holding.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there are times when, when I will listen. The thing is, when you're in a session, they have to be able to talk to you. So then you kind of have to wear the headphones. I'll do one off or one on so that I can hear them, but I'm not just surrounded by the sound of my own voice.
Absolutely. So I want to open it up to some questions here from the audience. Questions for Alicyn. Here we go. Go ahead, sir.
Are you able to switch between your different voices and not like get
Confused?
Oh, what? Do this character, but then how do you make sure you're not like that's switching for different?
That's a really good question. So, for example, on the show Yokai Watch, I play I don't even know, 40 different characters. And in the movie, there's only 5 or 6 of us voice actors that voice that movie, and there's, so they would ask when I was doing a scene, do you want to do all one character or do you want to go back and forth? And if the character, if you do it enough and it lives in you, like, Jibanyan, Voice of Fury, I have now memorized the vocal placement of where he lives and how he feels to me. And so it's easy for me to go back, no, day 10, she's like, oh, really? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, day 10 time. Get out of my face. It's like going back and forth. It becomes easier the more memorized, I guess you are, with the vocal placement. So you can really feel, but when characters are new, you might come up with something like if you're doing an audition and you want to do somebody that sounds like this, and then at the end of the audition, it might waver and sound more like this, which is just slightly different. And I find that's one of the most challenging parts of animation is staying consistent with the sound that you pick for the role. That is one of the biggest challenges. So it just comes down to practicing and living as that character, what they would say and if you listen to TV shows over time and you hear the actors in the first season of The Simpsons, go back and hear their voices, you will notice a difference because you tend to find the character over time. So I think in terms of tips for that, really, again, physicalizing the character, living as the character, maybe brush your teeth as the character, order breakfast at the drive-thru as the character, and just and trying to feel how it feels so that you have that muscle memory to go back to the character.
Have you ever done that? Have you ordered anything drive-thru as a character? I need to ask.
But I do have a weekly IGTV show and podcast called Alice's Wonderland, which you guys would love if you're into voice actors. I interviewed Brian Hull a couple weeks ago. He's a famous YouTuber and voice actor. He's going to be Dracula in the new Hotel Transylvania 4. And he does that a lot. That's a trend, on YouTube where people will go to the drive-thru and do impressions and be like, as he does Mickey Mouse and will order order food as that. I have not, I may probably have done that at some point, but it's not a habit of mine. But that's pretty hilarious.
That's funny. Any other questions for Alicyn as well? There we go.
So you brought up the Yokai Watch. How was your experience? I like the way they do that adaptation process of it. Wish a lot of translation were done that way.
We had an amazing director, Mark Risley, who I've worked with on the Mr. Men show, Space Racers, and a bunch of other shows. He is just so wonderful. But to be completely honest, those things go so quick. And that's another big takeaway for anybody that's interested in voice acting. I would say take as much improv class as you can. Because a lot of times you just get the script when you arrive at the session. So cold reading, being able to just take something off the page, like if you were to hand me something right now, like I could read it pretty much cold and, and be able to get the message across, or read through it once so you at least have an idea of what's going on. But you might do an ABC 3 takes in a row with different attitudes. But with that show, I mean, they give you're watching dubbing, so you're watching the actual video from Japan and hearing it, and then they'll do 3 beeps, beep, 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 and then you go. And to be completely honest, we moved so fast with that show that a lot of times they wouldn't show us the clip first. You would just know it's 3 seconds, beep, 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 say the line. But I think there's something so magical about that because it keeps you in the moment. You were just fully engrossed in that moment. You're watching it as they go along, and it's like, okay, meow! Like Jibanyan's always like shouting and yelling, and so you will go and you'll be like a 3-second meow, meow! Just watching it as you go and kind of living as the on-screen character. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't done a ton of dubbing. Poppy Cat was dubbed from Britain. So I have done, a handful of other shows that were not anime, but maybe it was Mark. Maybe Mark is the special sauce in that combination. And also, I mean, Joey's amazing. Johnny Young Bosch is amazing, and so it's really a fun opportunity to just think quick on your toes.
And that goes back to what you were saying, really living in that character, being able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So I do want to bring up another thing that you came prepared for, because you do all this great voice work. Okay. And if anybody last night was at the karaoke, here we got the star of the celebrity karaoke, you and Belle last night were like rocking it, doing all kinds of songs. But
it was fun.
You do a little bit of music too. So let's talk about that.
So that's definitely like a passion of mine, singing and mainly singing songs that I've written. It's just something that fuels my soul and helps me process my emotions and grow. So in 2019, I think I put out an album. I actually am not sure what year it was. My son, there's like my son's 5, and there's like life before him and life after, and they're both kind of a blur now. So it's post Bodhi. So I put out an album, and I have some digital download cards that my mom just brought in. So if anybody is curious to hear it, you can swing by the booth and pick one of those up. And so yeah, I brought my ukulele. I shoved it in my backpack at the last minute, thinking I might have free time to jam. And then I realized there's no downtime at convention. You're working all day, all night. But then I thought, oh, maybe I'll just play a song for you guys if you wanted to hear it.
You guys want to hear a song?
Okay.
All right.
Oh my God, are those maracas? Awesome! Okay, so just give me a second to tune up.
I just love the fact that you play a ukulele.
I do. I play some guitar as well, but that was harder to shove in the backpack.
You didn't bring the piano?
Actually, don't play piano. Okay, guys. And maybe next time I'll actually, put together a set and have like sound.
That'd be very cool.
This song's called Ellsfield. We laid there on the tarmac at Ellsfield. That sleepy time wine that caught you again. You shuffle the bed and I'm left there with my questions. It's been known to happen every now and then. But I wanna breathe you in so deep, and all that I have to give is all that you need. Breathe in, just breathe in. It's an action I can't handle. If I breathe in the stars, I could breathe all the light into dark. Remember those summers back on the East Coast, when the sky is so wide that you swear you can see the earth on. But I wanna breathe you in so deep, and all that I have to give is all that you need. Yeah, I wanna hold you close, but you are not here. Silence can't replace the words I wanna hear. Yeah, I wanna breathe you in so deep. There's so much to share, but instead I let you sleep. We lay there on the tarmac at Ellen's feet. Thank you so much, guys. I would love to connect. I'm on Instagram at Alicyn. It's just ALICYN. I would love to connect with you guys this weekend, and I really, really appreciate you giving me a space to share with you. Thank you.
And today's your last day here, so folks, if you need to see Alicyn, you're gonna be here all day
Yep,
today.
I'll be here all day.
And then, yeah, so go get a table, get the digital download, get some prints, all kinds of good stuff here.
Thank
So
you,
thank you so much.
guys. Thank you. Enjoy your con. Enjoy your con. What was that?
Did you write that?
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.